We begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Ches Amud Beis, the first wide line towards the bottom of the Amud, where it says Oy shenasis Angaria Oy Melay Reshalach Lefanecha. The Mishnah said the person rented a donkey, and what happened? There was the government officials or the army that would take the donkey of a person and go use it for their own needs. And then the Mishnah says, but nevertheless, the owner tells the renter, sorry, it's your loss, it's your mazel. I don't have to reimburse you for the fact that you weren't able to use this donkey for your rental. So the Gemara now brings here machlokes when the words of the Mishnah apply. Amar Rav, so Rav explains, Lo shonu ela b'angaria chizeres. The din of the Mishnah is only in a case where the government, they take the donkey from you, but then they'll return it to you. So you will still have time to use it for what you needed it for. The renter will still be able to deliver his packages. He'll be delayed, but they give it back to him eventually. So that's the case where the owner could say to him, look, you were able to use it for what you needed, even though it was delayed. But if they confiscate the donkey from him, and they don't return it to him, or at least they don't return it to him on time, so he couldn't use it for his rental at all, then the owner is going to have to give him another donkey for what he needed it. So this is similar to what it says in the Mishnah that Rashi here says. That in the Mishnah says what happens if your donkey dies or breaks and you can't use it at all. So the Mishnah said that the owner has to give you another donkey. So here as well, if they're confiscating from you and they're not giving it to you back at all on time, so then it's the same thing. Yeah, he has to give you another donkey. However, Shmuel says, no, that's not what it depends on. Bein angaria chizeres or bein angaria she'ene chizeres. Whether they confiscate, the government they take, and they return it to you on time, or they do not return it to you on time, that's not what it depends on. It depends on something else. If they take it on the way that you're traveling, in the destination, the direction that you're traveling in, then Rashi explains what this means is that the derech of these government officials, or let's say it was the army that would go and confiscate your donkey, was they would find a person on the road, take his donkey to use it for what they needed, until they got to a certain point where they found someone else with a donkey, and then they allowed the owner of the donkey to take back his, and then they would take someone else's donkey, and then they would go to the next person, and that's how they would go along the road using different people's donkeys. So if they took your donkey on the way of the road in the direction that you're heading in, then he says, the owner says to the renter, so here, this is your donkey, this is your rental, that it's your loss. I don't have to reimburse you for the loss that you had here. And that's even if by the time they're returning this donkey to you, it's too late. You lost, you weren't able to deliver your packages. Because they're not returning it to him in the place where he was. They're going further. You're gonna have to follow them and get the donkey back from them wherever they're going to stop. So you're never really getting it back for yourself to be able to use it for where you are. You're going to have to hire or get another donkey to be able to follow after these people that took your donkey. But nevertheless, Shmuel says it doesn't matter. The owner says to him, it's your loss. And the reason is, Rashi says, because they came and met you on the way where you were traveling, that's your bad luck. They found you in the direction that you were going to, so it's your bad luck that you lost your rental, and I don't have to reimburse you. But if they're not taking it from him on the direction that he's heading in, they're taking it, they were coming in a different direction, they're going somewhere else, then the owner will have to give the renter a different donkey for him to be able to go where he wants to go. That's the distinction that Shmuel makes. This is the pshat that Rashi says. Taisus disagrees with this. Taisus says it's hard to understand why, even if they're heading in your direction, you're going to be forced, the renter is going to be forced to get for himself a donkey to be able to follow after them. He rented a donkey and he can't use it at all for what he needs it. Taisus brings the pshat of Rabbeinu Hananel that if the ones that confiscate come and take the donkey from the barn, that's what it means over here. If they come into your house or they come into your barn and they find the donkey, so then we say that it's not the bad luck of the renter. Because even if it wouldn't be here on the road, in this rental, the Angaria would have come to the barn and taken it as well. So then the owner, it's the owner's bad luck that he has to give you a new donkey. But if they encountered you on the road, in the way, so then it's considered to be your bad luck, because if it would have been left in the barn, this would have never happened. Now that you rented it and you're outdoors and you're going in a certain direction where there's the army that's traveling there, so you brought it there in that place, then it's your bad luck and you're not going to be able to demand anything from the owner. That's Taisus' pshat. Okay, sagt the Gemara, Meisvei, when asked from a Braise, it says, a person rented a donkey, ve'evrika, we had before two pshatim, either it means that it lost a certain part of its eyesight, or it has worms in its feet. So this is still a donkey that's usable, but it's just more difficult to use it. Or the donkey is not behaving normally, also a donkey that you can still use, but it's more difficult. The owner tells the renter, you can still use the donkey even though it's more difficult. This is what you have for your rental. It's your loss. However, Mesa, or if the donkey though died, or the donkey was taken by the army to use, then the owner has to give you a new donkey. So the question over here is, in our Mishnah it said that if it became Angaria, he does not have to provide you a new donkey. So how do we answer the contradiction of the Mishnah to this Braisa? So Rav, it's understood according to Rav what the answer is, as Rav said before, the distinction. There's no contradiction between the Mishnah and the Braisa. In the Mishnah, it's talking about when they confiscate your donkey, but then they bring it back to you. So therefore you can still use it for what you rented it for. So the owner doesn't have to give you anything more for the delay that you have to wait. The Braisa is speaking about when they take it and they don't return it to you, so therefore it's like it died. So the owner has to give you a new one. But however, according to Shmuel that does not hold of this distinction, whether they give it back, whether they don't give it back, it's the same thing. The owner could say to the renter, it's your bad luck. So then what's the answer for the contradiction of the Mishnah to the Braisa? So the Gemara right away says, well, Shmuel also made a distinction. If you would think to say, the Shmuel nami like kashe, according to Shmuel, there's no question here either, because kan shebederech alichasa nitla. If the Angaria, they come and they take it and they're going on the same direction that you're going, so then the owner does not have to reimburse the renter. That's the halacha of the Mishnah. And here they're going in a different direction, so therefore the owner does have to reimburse you, as Shmuel said. So that's the pshat of the Braisa. Says the Gemara, that can be the explanation for what the Braisa says. Because midiktani seife, in that Braisa, then it continues and says that Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, Im bederech alichasa nitla, I'm allowed reshalach lefanecha. They're going in your direction, so then the owner says to the renter, here, they take it from them, follow them and take it from them. And if not, the owner has to give you another donkey. So Reb Shimon ben Elazar and the Seifa, he's the one that's clearly making this distinction, like Shmuel said. If that's what Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, so from that I understand the Tanakama, that the Tanakama of this Braisa, Loishanile, he does not make this distinction. So therefore, the Gemara's question over here is, according to Shmuel, at this point the Gemara assumes that the Tana of our Mishnah is probably not following Reb Shimon ben Elazar, which is the Seifa of this Braisa. It's probably following the Tana Kama, which is the Stam and the Rabbim. And so therefore, how does the Shmuel explain the Tana of our Mishnah to fit with the Tana Kama of this Braisa? So the Gemara answers, Amalach Shmuel. Shmuel will tell you, Lav Mikir Reb Shimon ben Elazar the Koi Kvasi. You have Reb Shimon ben Elazar in the Seif of the Braisa that says exactly what I said. So Anada Amri Reb Shimon ben Elazar. I'm following the distinction that Reb Shimon ben Elazar said. And according to Shmuel, the Tana of our Mishnah is also going like Reb Shimon ben Elazar. That's one shot. Or we can say, as Gemara does many times in such a case, Kula Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Really, this entire Braisa is all just Reb Shimon ben Elazar speaking. There's no two opinions here. And there's missing words in this Braisa. It seems like that there's an argument here in this Braisa, but it isn't. It's really all one opinion. And you have to read the Braisa as follows. It's still usable, so the owner tells the renter, use it as is. But if it either died or was taken by the Angaria, then the owner does have to give a new donkey. And now here you read the Braisa as follows. When is that the case? If the Angaria took it not in the direction that you're going in. Nitla, that's how it was taken. If they're taking it on the direction that you were going in, the owner tells the renter, take as it is, to go follow them and take it in the direction that they were going. This is Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar's opinion. And then the Brisa continues, Shahaya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Aimer, since Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar made this distinction, that so this, it's all really Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar speaking, making this distinction that Shmuel said that it depends if they're going in the way that you're traveling or not, according to Rashi's Pshat. Okay, but now the Gemara asks on this second pshat here that the entire Braise is all Rab Shimon ben Elazar speaking, and therefore the Tana of our Mishnah is also Rab Shimon ben Elazar that makes this distinction. But Ami Matzis Maik Misla Rab Shimon ben Elazar. How could you say that the entire Braise is all Rab Shimon ben Elazar? V'akatani Reisha, in the Reisha of the Braise it says, you rented this donkey, and Vivrika either it lost its eyesight or the feet are not working so good. It's not behaving normally. The Tanna Kama says that the owner tells the renter you could still use it. But Ve'ilu Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omar, if you look further there, in that Braise, it says clearly that Rab Shimon ben Elazar argues. Rab Shimon ben Elazar says, you rented a donkey to ride on it, the owner will have to give the renter a new donkey. So there's a clear argument here between the Tanna Kama and Rab Shimon ben Elazar regarding the case of Vihivrika or Nishtatis. So how could you say that the entire Braise is all just Rab Shimon ben Elazar, and that it's just Rab Shimon ben Elazar in the end is explaining his opinion of the beginning? So the Gemara answers, no, this is not a question. Amar Rabbi Baravuna answers, you look into the words of the Braise, Rab Shimon ben Elazar in the Seifa, when he says that he's going to have to give him a new donkey, that's lir kovaleo shani. Over here, it's because you can rent a donkey to put your packages on it, and you're going to lead the donkey, or you can rent it to ride on it yourself. If you're riding on it yourself, and the donkey lost part of its eyesight, or it doesn't walk straight, or it's not behaving normally, then you can't ride on it. The owner's going to have to give you a new donkey. What are you going to do? Is you're going to ride over a bridge with such a donkey and you're afraid you're going to fall over the bridge with this donkey? You can't ride on it yourself. If it's just the packages on it, so you could lead the donkey and make sure to pay attention that it shouldn't go off course. But if you're riding on it, so that's when Rab Shimon ben Elazar says that he's going to have to give you a new donkey. So there's no contradiction between Rab Shimon ben Elazar and what the Tanna Kama says. The Tanna Kama is talking about when you're not riding on it yourself. Now, based on this, a similar thing, Omer Rav Papa says, Uklis chuchis, if you rented the donkey in order to transport the glassware, crystals they have there. Glass vessels, yeah. Then so then it's like you're riding on it yourself, because this is something which, if it just falls, then it all shatters, it breaks. In such a case, the person is not going to be able to put his glass vessels on this donkey, so he has to give him a new donkey. Rabbi Baravuna said another halacha regarding renting a donkey in the name of Rav. Now here, the continuation of the Gemara is going to discuss the next din that the Mishnah said in a case where you rent a donkey and the donkey dies on you. Whose responsibility now is it? The Mishnah actually said that it's the owner's responsibility to provide a new donkey for the renter. But here, he says in the name of Rav as follows. You rented a donkey to ride on it. Halfway into the journey, the donkey is dead. So the renter has to pay half of the rental for half of the journey. And the renter can't have more than complaints to the owner. The owner doesn't have to provide him any new donkey for the rest of the way, and he just pays him half of the rental. Okay, so it's an obvious question that doesn't fit with what it says in our Mishnah. The Gemara here is going to go through the details of exactly what was the agreement of the rental here. Hey Chidami, so what are we talking about? Oh, before the Gemara comes to the agreement of the rental, the Gemara addresses something else. What's the case here? If, when it drops dead, and you have right there available another donkey to rent to continue on your way, why would you have any complaints to the owner? You rented it half of the way, and now you just take another donkey and continue on your way. You pay half of the rental to the first owner, and now you'll pay the other half of the rental to the second owner. So you had no delay, you had no issues, so there's no problem. If it's not found, you don't have another donkey to rent, should you be obligated to pay half of the rental for half of the journey for the first owner? He got you into a place which is not what the agreement was, where you're supposed to be heading to. You need to go to a certain destination, and now you're in the middle of your journey, and you're stuck here. Why should you even pay him for half of the rental? He should provide for me a new donkey that I should be able to get to where I have to, and then I'll pay him fully. Answers the Gemara, no, it doesn't work like that way. That way. La'olam, really the case over here is the lo shchiach la'guri. The donkey is dead, and you can't find another donkey to rent, but still you have to pay him half for the rental, and you can't have more complaints to him. Because the owner could tell the renter, ilu bois l'meise ad hocha. If you would want to come halfway until here, lav agre bois l'meise, would you not have to pay half for the rental to be able to get halfway? So therefore, the fact that you got here halfway, you have to pay me half for the rental. Okay, but Tosfos though asks right away on this, but didn't the Gemara ask that this doesn't make sense? Because the renter says, I told you clearly that I'm renting the donkey for 10 miles, and that was the agreement here. And I got to 5 miles, it's worthless for me. So Tosfos says that you must say that, one pshat, Tosfos says the pshat of the Gemara's answer is that he's able to find another donkey to continue on his way, but he's going to have to pay a more expensive price for the second half of his journey, because he can't find the same price of the rental like this. So he's able to find the donkey to continue further. So therefore the owner tells him, the fact that you got till here, you have to pay me. Because if you would want to rent for half of the way, this is what it would cost. You're stuck here, you're not stuck. You can continue going further. It's going to cost you a little more. So it's an inus. It dropped dead. It's not my fault. So therefore you're going to have to incur the loss of this. That's one shot of Tosfos. Okay, but now the Gemara addresses another aspect to this case over here when it died in the middle of the way. So, for the Gemara now, heichi dami. What is the case over here? Now here the Gemara addresses more about what was the actual agreement of this rental. If when the agreement of the rental was, the owner says, I'm going to provide you a donkey. Not this donkey, but a donkey. Stam, any donkey, that means. If so, so when this donkey here drops dead, so the owner should have to provide for him another donkey, because he says, I will provide you a donkey for this journey of 10 miles. Okay, so now if it's not this one, so now it's your responsibility to give him a different donkey. So why are we saying that he pays him just half of the rental and that's it, and he moves on? On the other hand, if the agreement of the rental was specifically, he says that I'm going to provide for you in the rental this chamor. And now this chamor drops dead. So who has to provide here the donkey for the way further? So now we have here the dead donkey. Im yesh b'damel likach, if you can take the dead carcass of this donkey and sell it, buy with this money a new donkey, another cheaper donkey you buy with it. So then yikach. So then the owner, because he said chamor zeh, this chamor I'm providing for you for your journey. So even if once the chamor is dead, but from chamor zeh you should take from the dead carcass and buy him a new donkey for the rest of the journey. So you should buy for him. So why does it say that he pays him half of the rental and it's all done? Answers the Gemara. So lo yitzriche, it must be the case of here is b'shein b'damel likach. That there's no value in the dead carcass of this donkey to be able to buy a new donkey. So therefore, in such a case, if there's no value, you can't see. He told him, I'm giving you chamor zeh. Chamor zeh is done. It's dead, and it doesn't have any value to buy a new donkey. According to Rashi, when it said in the Mishnah that if a donkey died, that the owner has to provide a new donkey for the renter, it's this case. It's talking about a case of chamor zeh, and what the Mishnah meant to say is that it's going to be the owner's responsibility to sell this carcass and take the money of this donkey and provide a new donkey for the renter. But the Gemara here is saying that Rav was speaking about in a case where there isn't enough money here to buy a new donkey. So therefore, it's an einus, and he said zeh, and zeh is gone, so you don't have to provide him any other donkey. But the Gemara asks on this, okay, maybe you can't take the dead carcass and buy a new donkey for the renter. But im yesh b'damel liskar yiskar, if you can take the dead carcass of the donkey and now rent another donkey for the owner should go and take that money and rent a new donkey for the renter to be able to go on his way for the rest of his journey. Why doesn't he have a responsibility to do that? Even when he said chamor zeh, but you can take now that money and use it for a rental and get the renter on his way. And says the Gemara, Rav l'taimei, Rav follows his reasoning. The Amar Rav said, loy mechalinon karna, that the responsibility of the owner, when he said chamor zeh, and you're renting a donkey, does not include to provide him with this chamor, even if he's not going to get back the principal. He's not going to get, after he's done fulfilling his responsibility, he gets nothing back. What's a rental? A rental is, I'm renting you this chamar, and when you finish using the chamar, you give it back to me. Over here, if you're going to say that it's his responsibility to sell the dead carcass and now rent a donkey for the renter to go on his way, so then when it's done, the rental is over. Now what does the owner get back? Nothing. You're using up the chamar zeh for the agreement of the rental, and he gets back nothing, not the principal at all. Rav holds that's not part of the responsibility of the renter. He has to provide for him, but only if he gets something back here, if he gets a keren back. The Itmer, as we learned about what Rav said, and this is a machlokes actually between Rav and Shmuel. What happens if you rent someone a donkey and it died midway? So Rav says, if you can take the dead carcass and now buy a new donkey, so then it's the owner's responsibility to buy from a new donkey. And then when it's over, he gets back something, the donkey. Liskoir. If there's only money here to rent a donkey for this renter, al yiskar. He doesn't have the responsibility to rent for him, because then in the end he gets nothing back. That's not part of the responsibility of the owner. Shmuel Omar, however, Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel says, af liskoir yiskar. Even if you could only rent with the money of the dead carcass, the owner has the responsibility to rent for the renter to get him on his way, even though at the end he's going to be left with nothing. He gets nothing back from the principal of this rental. That's part of his responsibility. What are they arguing about? Rav Sovar, Loi, Mechalin, Karna. Rav says we do not completely use up the principle in the agreement of this rental. That's not part of the responsibility of the owner. And Shmuel Sovar, Mechalin, Karna. Shmuel says, yeah, we do use up the entire principle for the agreement of this rental. It is part of his responsibility. So now the Gemara asks on Rav Meisvei, we learned in a brayse as follows. And here it's talking about not a rental but a loan. In the case of a loan, so this brayse is talking about something we learned about in the previous pedic, which is called mashkanta de sura. A person lends money and he gets a property as a collateral. And what's the agreement of this collateral of this property that he has? That for the next 10 years, I get the produce of this property, and over all the payments that I'm going to use over the next 10 years will pay up my loan, and then afterwards you get back this property. The Gemara before described why there's no issue of ribis in this. It could be that you're going to get even produce that's more than the loan that you lent. It could be you're going to end up getting less if it produces even less. For this time period, it's locked in that you eat the paytas for these 10 years. It's considered to be like a sale, like you bought the paytas for these 10 years. There's no issue of ribis. That's the collateral that this brayse is talking about. Now, what happens now? You have this property. The malve, the lender, has this property in his possession, and yavish yilan and niktzatz. The tree over here of this property dried up, or it was cut down. So now what happens? The lender can't eat any fruits over here to get his loan paid up. And on the other hand, the borrower wants to take it back. So the brayse says, Shnei masurim, but both the lender and the borrower, it's also for them to just take this wood and go and use it for firewood. Because then you're taking away, if the borrower takes it, so then you're taking away from the lender. This was a deal that within these years, it's his. On the other hand, the lender can't take it because his deal was that he's going to get paid this. He can't go and use the tree itself and destroy it and burn it for firewood. So what do you do with this? Says the brayse, Ketzet Yasa, what do? You lokach by karka, take the value of the wood of this tree and buy another small piece of property, and then v'hoichel peiris, and then the malva continues eating the fruits of it, or like the agreement that there was in the beginning, that he's going to eat the fruits of it for that number of years. That's what the brayse says. Okay, so now here we're talking about a borrower and a lender. So similar to what we were discussing before regarding an owner and a renter, is it the owner's responsibility to provide for this rental even when the entire principal gets used up? Here as well, the question becomes, is it the borrower's responsibility to provide for the lender this mashkin, the use of this property, even if in the end it'll get all used up and the lender will give nothing back to the borrower? So the Gemara asks, that's what's going to happen here. Over here, what are you suggesting? Buy a property and then the lender will have what to use from it. But what's going to happen in the end? Kiv and the chimati yovel, you just bought now a new property. And then when yovel is going to come, what's the halacha? Kahadra ara lamara. That property you bought is going to go back to its original owner. The kakal yakarna. So if so, the borrower is going to be left with nothing. So you see over here that by a borrower, his responsibility to pay with this mashkin that he gave to the lender, this property, is even if it's going to end up being used up completely. So just like we say that regarding a borrower, we should say the same thing with an owner that's renting a donkey as well.
Even if it doesn't happen to things going back.
Even with what?
Even if this story didn't happen, the
Yeah.
land is going back to the original owner.
Because of Yovel?
Yeah.
No. But if it's the original property that he got as a mashkin, so then the lender gives it back to the borrower when the mashkin, the suda is done, he gets back his property. He does get it back. But over here, though, they were forced to buy a second property from someone else in order to be able to pay up the mashkin. So over here, and when you're buying a second property, what ends up happening is when Yovel comes, the borrower is left with nothing because he's going to have to give back the property to the person they bought it from when Yovel comes. So the Gemara answers, the case over here is that this property was bought for 60 years, which is a long time, and it's more than the years of Yovel. In such a case, by the time of Yovel, it does not go back to the one that they bought it from. Because the Amar Rav Chisda said in the name of Rav Ketina, that is, how do I know if you sell your property, not forever, you're selling your property for 60 years? In such a case, when Yovel comes, it doesn't go back to the owner. Shana, the pasuk says, that in Eretz Yisrael, you can't sell land forever. And the Yovel goes back to the owner. What does that mean? If this is a sale that without Yovel, it's a full sale forever, then Yesham Yovel ein on its messes. Then I say that Yovel, after 50 years, it will not remain always by the buyer, and you have to give it back. That excludes this case. Even without Yovel, it's only being sold for 60 years, so therefore Yovel does not take effect in such a case. Okay, so at this point, what the Gemara is thinking is that you bought this property for 60 years, so the lender is gonna finish using this property for his mashkin, that he's collecting his loan, and then afterwards, the keren of it, this property itself, is going to go back to the borrower, and he's going to be able to use it for a nice number of years. Later on, eventually, after 60 years, it will go back to the original person that it was owned by, but it doesn't matter. That's not, at this point, things that's not called machal yakarna, because the borrower does get a certain number of years that he could still use it for himself. So therefore, this is not a case of machal yakarna. But the Gemara doesn't accept this svara. The Gemara says, no, sof. In the end, what happens? When it comes to 60 years, you have to give back this property to the one that you bought it from. So again, this is still a case where you're forcing the borrower to pay up his loan with this mashkin here, even if at the end he doesn't get back his property, he gets back nothing, because after 60 years he'll be left with nothing. The kakal yakarna, it uses up completely the principle of this mashkin here that he's paying with it. So this is still a question on Rav. How could you say it's the responsibility of the borrower to pay to such an extent? Elos, here the Gemara says we must say it differently. There's no question here on Rav. What's this Braisa talking about? And the time when there's no Yovel, from the time of the second Beis Hamikdash forward, there's no Yovel. So therefore, the fact that it's going to go back to that original person does not take effect here. So therefore, you buy the property, and then the borrower is getting back a keren. Says the Gemara, it's logical to say that this is the pshat in the Braisa. If you're going to say that the pshat in the Braisa over here is, you're buying this property, and the fact that the borrower will be left with nothing is not a concern. Why? Because like Shmuel says, even if you use up the whole principle, it's not an issue. If so, why do you even have to go ahead and buy this property? What was the case over here? We had over here this tree that dried up, or a tree that got cut down, and you're trying to figure out how's the lender not going to get his payment. So just take that tree itself, chop it into firewood, and let him use it for firewood. If you're going to tell me that we're following Shmuel's opinion, that we're not concerned about the fact that you're using up the entire principle of the borrower, so why is the Braisa giving the Eitzah to buy another property? But in the end, even that property that you're going to buy is going to go back in Yovel. So you might as well just take the wood that you have right over here and use it up. That's Shmuel's opinion. You can use it up. But on that, the Gemara says, no, this raya is not a raya. If that's your question, according to Shmuel, why would you have to buy another property and not just use this wood itself for firewood? That's not a question. Because zimnin, that is, sometimes the sholmu shnei mashkanta mekame yovel. It could be that the days of the mashkin, the years of the mashkin, will end before yovel comes. So therefore, it's more beneficial for the borrower. The borrower will at least get back his property for a certain number of years. If you're taking now the wood of this tree and you're chopping it up and using it for firewood, the borrower is not getting back anything ever. It's all being chopped up right now. Over here, with this way of buying another property, at least he's going to get back something. What the Gemara is saying is, even according to Shmuel, that says that the responsibility of the borrower is even if machal yakarna, even if it gets used up, but it's still better that you should do it in such a way that he gets back something of this property that he gave you as a mashkin. If you have two options, you have an option to take this wood and chop it up and he gets back zero, or you have an option to buy another property and he'll get back some of it to use for a certain time period, that's better. Or maybe now this lender will have cash to pay the borrower and he'll be able to give back this property that they bought before Yovel and he'll have some use out of it. So therefore the Braisa gave that Eitzah even if you follow Shmuel's opinion. So therefore the Braisa here could go according to Shmuel that holds Machal Yakarna. It could go according to Rav that holds Loi Machal Yakarna, because we're not talking about a situation where there's Yovel. So even when you're buying this property, it will not get used up. Okay, the Gemara now returns to the halacha of a rental. Tan Rabbanan Aseiches Asfina, a person rented a boat for a shipment. We'll see, the Gemara gives the example, a person is using this boat for a shipment of wine, and the boat sunk halfway in the journey. And now here, the boat sinks with the wine, everything in it is in the bottom of the sea. Rab Nassan says, if the renter paid already for the rental, lo yitel, he can't take back the money of the payment. Vim loy nasan, if he didn't pay yet, lo yiten, he shouldn't pay for this rental. So the Gemara asks, what's Rab Nassan saying here? Hey Chidami, what's the case? What are we talking about here? So here what's unique about this case is, before we were talking about a chamayr, so the owner provided you a chamayr and the chamayr died. Oh, it's all right. So over there, the discussion is whether the owner came through with what he agreed to provide or not. Here, in this case, it's not only a question of whether the owner is providing his part of the agreement, which is the boat that he's renting you, but it's also the renter that said, I need it for this and this wine. Is the renter, now, does he have that wine that he says that he needs to use it for? So over here, both the boat and the entire shipment, both of it sank. So who over here is the one that's not able to provide his part of the agreement? So the Gemara says, what are we talking about over here? Hey Chidami, what's the case? If the terms of the agreement was that the owner says, I'm providing you here this boat, and v'yayin stam, and the renter says, I need to ship wine. He didn't say it's these barrels of wine here that I'm going to be using it for. He says I'm using it to ship wine. He doesn't say which wine. So if so, frag the Gemara, im nasan amayla yitel. If he gave the money already, why shouldn't he take back the money? Namely, he should say to the owner, have lisfinte, provide for me the boat, dana my sinachamra, and I'll bring for you wine. I have wine that I can bring to give my part of the agreement that I said that I needed for any wine. The wine that was here on the ship is at the bottom of the sea. I didn't tell you I need it for this wine. I told you I need it for wine. And I can bring you wine now that I still have to ship. You told me that you're going to bring me this boat. Now this boat sunk. And so therefore you're the one that can't live up to your part of the agreement. If you can't provide your part of the agreement, so that I shouldn't have to pay you. So
who's responsible for the wine that's sank?
It's a einus. What happened over here is it's a einus, right? So that's not, no one was negligent of here. That's not the point. The point over here is there's a einus that happened, but the renter says, me, from my behalf, I have wine still available to ship. You, from your behalf, you told me you're going to provide a boat, but you can't provide me that boat now because it's at the bottom of the sea. So you're the one that's not providing. I am, so therefore I shouldn't have to pay anything for my rental. That's if you say that the terms was, like the Gemara said, sfinizu and yayin stam. On the other hand, elo, if the case over here is b'sfinistam v'yayin zeh, if the owner says, I'm going to provide for you a boat, any boat, not only this boat, I'll provide for you any boat. And then v'yayin zeh, the renter says, I need to ship these barrels of wine. So in such a case, in loy nasan, if he didn't pay yet, amai lo yitain. Why shouldn't he have to pay to the owner for this rental? Namely, the owner should say to the renter, havli ahu chamre. Now you're the one that can't follow through with your part of the agreement. Why? Because you said you have to ship these barrels of wine. Where are your barrels of wine? Your barrels of wine sunk. So he says to him, bring me your barrels of wine. I have another boat available for you. I'm ready to provide for you another boat, but it's you that cannot bring me the wine that you had to ship over here with the boat, and therefore you're the one that can't follow through with the agreements of the rental. So therefore, you should have to pay me fully if you can't follow through, and I'm ready to follow through with it, so it's your responsibility. That's the Gemara's question. So what are we talking about over here when it says, if he paid, so then he doesn't take back the money. If he did not pay, then he shouldn't pay. Why do we say that? Rav Papa answers, the halacha that Rav Nosson says it will only make sense if the terms of the agreement was as follows. That the owner said that I'm providing you this ship, and the renter said that I need to ship this barrels of wine here. So both of them cannot now follow through with their agreement. Both of them are stuck. So therefore, what's the halach in such a case where both of them made an agreement and both of them can't follow through with the terms of the agreement? So the halach is the one that's coming to take the money out of the other, he's at a disadvantage. Because neither of them can have more of a claim over the other. None of them can't follow through with the terms of the agreement. So if you paid already, so then you won't be able to take your money back because you can't follow through with your agreement. But if you did not pay yet, so then you're not going to have to pay because the owner can't follow through with his terms of the agreement either. That's when Rav Nosson said his halacha. But now the Gemara finishes off and says there's another possibility in the terms of the agreement. Avol bisfinas stam, v'yayin stam. If it's a situation where the owner says, I'll provide for you any boat, and the renter says, I need this to ship any wine, they didn't specify this boat and this wine, in such a case, chalkin. In such a case, they both actually could follow through with the terms of the agreement. The owner says, here, I have another boat for you. And the one with the wine says, he also could bring other wine here. So if the owner actually wants to come and bring another boat, so then fine, he can bring another boat. If he's going to bring a wine, so then he's going to have to follow through. They can both have to follow through. But in a case where the owner will not provide another boat and the renter is not bringing other wine, since they both could provide their part of the agreement over here, in such a case the halach is going to be chalkin, that they divide the rental over here. He has to pay him half of it. Tana Rabbanon, and on a brayso we learned another halacha regarding renting a boat. If you rented a boat, and it's what not right now the Gemara understands that the pshat of this is you unloaded it half of the way of the journey. You tell the owner, I'm renting this boat to go 10 miles, and half of the journey you dock it and you take off your packages. You pay the owner for half of the journey that you rented the boat for, and the owner has only complaints to you that now he lost money, that you didn't follow through with your rental until the end. So the Gemara asks on this, what's the case here? Hey Chidami, what are we talking about? If the owner can very easily find someone else to continue renting the boat for going further, why does he have any complaints? He has someone else to take over the rental right away. If you can't find someone else to take over the rental, so then you should have to pay for the entire rental. You made up an agreement. You're taking it for 10 miles and you stop after 5 miles. And now he's losing the rest of the way that he doesn't find anyone else to rent it. Answers the Gemara, really, the owner could find someone else to rent the boat from him for going further. Why does he have complaints to this renter? Because of the wear and tear of this boat. He thought that you're going to be just one renter for the next 10 miles, and now you have to take off your packages, and someone else brings on their packages. This causes extra wear and tear for the boat, and that's not what you paid for. You paid for a longer trip where there won't be this extra wear and tear. If that's the case, that he has complaints to you that there's extra wear and tear, so then Taina Samal Yasihi. So this is actually a very good claim. Shouldn't just be complaints, tarumais. He has actually a good money claim that you should have to pay extra for the fact that you're causing him extra wear and tear. The owner can charge now and ask from the renter to pay extra for this. So if the Gemara changes the pshat, elamai parka, when it says here parka, what it means is something different. The parka l'tayane begave. What this means is that he added an extra load onto the boat more than what it was in the beginning. Okay, so as Rashi explains, the case over here is you made an agreement with the owner of the boat that you're going to rent this boat to go a certain amount of wherever you're going to, and you made up with him. If I add more packages to the boat later, then I'll pay you more. So that was all part of the original agreement. The only thing is, though, you didn't tell him clearly in the beginning that I'm planning on doing so. You didn't specify to him, and I'm planning on actually stopping middle of the way and bringing more packages. So therefore, what happens is now the boat is heavier and there's more. So he has tinus. So the Gemara explains Elamai to Tarumais. Why does he have any complaints? That was part of the original agreement, that if I add more packages, I'll pay you more for the rental. So why does he have any complaints? The answer is Mishum Shinui Daita. Either because why didn't you specify and tell him in the beginning that you're actually planning on doing this? True, this was the terms of the rental, but why didn't you let the owner know that you're actually planning on bringing more packages onto the boat? He was expecting to get to the destination quicker. Now you slowed him down. You could have told him in the beginning, so you should plan accordingly. You didn't. So therefore he has tinus to you, but he can't. There's no money claim here because that was part of the terms of the agreement. Inami la'ashla yisere. Or the taina now is that now he's going to have to get thicker rope to be able to pull the boat into the port. And if you would have told him in advance, he would have already gotten those ropes in the beginning for a better price. Now, because he didn't know this and he has to now quickly get thicker ropes, so he's going to have to pay more for the thicker ropes. So that's something that you should have told him in advance. But again, it's only tarumis because it's part of the original agreement that you're allowed to bring more packages onto the boat. A person rents a donkey to ride on it. So now here we're talking about a case where this renter is taking this donkey together with the owner. The owner is the donkey driver. So you have the donkey driver that's going here on this donkey together with another person that's renting that's on this donkey. So the seicher, the renter, is allowed to place onto the donkey his clothing that he needs for the way, his jug of water, all the other food that he needs for the entire journey, however amount of time it is. But anything more that he wants to place onto the donkey, the owner, which is the donkey driver, could stop him from putting anything additional on it. Now, Chamar, the donkey driver himself, what is he allowed to bring and put on the donkey? He can bring barley and hay, which is the food for the donkey. And also, he could also bring for himself the food that he needs for that day. But he can't bring more than the food that he needs for that day. He can't bring food for the entire journey. To bring any more food for the entire journey, the seicher, the one that's renting, could prevent them of bringing any more. Okay, so here we see there's a difference. The seicher could bring the food for the entire journey for himself, and the donkey driver, the owner, could only bring for that day. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference here? What's the case here? If along the way you can find food to buy, so the donkey driver should hold back the renter of bringing more food than for that day. We could buy along the way. Why should you bring more? If you can't find along the way, so then the seicher should not be able to stop the donkey driver of bringing more food that he needs for the entire journey. You won't be able to find food along the way. So why can't he bring more? Rav Papa answers, the halach of this brayso is in the following case. If you go out of your way, you know where to find food, you can go from one inn to another, you'll be able to find food along the way. But you have to work hard to be able to go and find that food. The donkey driver, he always rides along these routes and he knows exactly where to go. It's his derech to be able to go out and find the food that he needs for himself along the way, so he can't bring more than for one day. The renter, though, it's not his derech to go out to find food for himself, so therefore he is allowed to bring all the food that he needs for the entire journey. You rented a donkey, and the agreement was you're using it for a man to ride on it. A woman should not ride on it because she'll be heavier and she'll could cause more damage to this donkey. Some say that it's more mitzad the position of the way a woman sits, so therefore it causes more weight to be on the donkey than the way a man sits, that he balances himself better. Isha ish. If you made it clear that you're renting it for the sake of a woman, so then you can have a man ride on it as well, because it's even less weight for the donkey. The Isha, if you made the agreement that a woman's going to ride on the donkey, ben gdaila, ben ktana, whether she's large or small, that agreement includes any kind of woman. Even a pregnant woman as well, you could have ride on the donkey. And even a woman that's nursing with the baby could come onto the donkey as well. That's part of the agreement. So the Gemara asks, Hashte Menika Amris, you said that a woman with a baby, nursing baby, can be brought onto this donkey. Mo'beres mibaya. Do you have to say that a pregnant woman could come on the donkey? It would seem that a mother with a nursing baby is even heavier. So why does it have to say a case of Mo'beres? Rav Papa, so Rav Papa answers, no, what the Braisa actually meant to say, Me'uberes vehi menika. We're talking here about a woman that's pregnant and she has a baby that she's nursing. Both, that's when the Braisa is saying that even that is still included in the agreement of the woman that you're bringing on this donkey. Abaye said, Shmami, no, I could learn out from this Braisa. So here, according to Rashi, the Braisa first said that it's a Isha Gedoyla, and then afterwards it said a Me'uberes. Why is the Braisa separating these two cases? Isha Gedoyla means a large woman. Wouldn't that include a Me'uberes as well? So that she could be large because she's pregnant. Why is the Braisa saying separately the Isha Me'uberes from the Isha Gedoyla? So from here we learn out regarding a fish as well. Binisa, if you're buying fish, when it comes to a fish, akarsa takla, the main weight of the fish could be in the stomach of the fish. So just that's why the Braisa there is separating it. What it's saying is that there's the large woman and then there's the pregnant woman, meaning that the main weight is in the stomach. And the same thing applies also to a fish. Now, what's the relevance to know that the main weight in the fish is in the stomach? The relevance is when you come to buy a fish. If you come to the store to buy a fish and you see it has a large belly, so take out the innards over there from the belly before you're going to pay for the fish. Why? Because that stomach of the fish is not edible. You're going to pay for the weight of the whole fish before you take out that part, and then you're paying for more than what you're going to really get. So therefore, you learn out from this Isha Muberes that the main weight is there in the stomach. First take out the stomach and then weigh it. So the price that you pay is for the value they're actually getting from this fish.